Does your view of money keep you from having money? Does it push it away? Tune in and find out.
You are listening to the Prosper Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Does your view of money actually push money away from you? That's a real thing, and it's something that I dealt with for much of my life, and I still deal with it. I still find myself dealing with that. I remember a mentor of mine one time said to us in a room, we were all in the room, when you order in a restaurant, when you sit down to order food in a restaurant, and let's say it's a nice restaurant, probably, so it's a little pricey, he said, and I'd never heard this before, he said, when you order, do you look at the left side of the menu or the right side? And at first, I didn't know what he was talking about. What do you mean left side, right side? But the dishes are on the left. And then on the right are the prices. And there could be the greatest horror, right? That you're going to get the lobster or something like that. And you look at the price, and it says market price. So what is that, $1 million, honestly? So if you're thinking like this, then you're living in a scarcity mindset. You're trying to save money because if you get the expensive steak versus the chicken, okay, or maybe the pasta, your subconscious mind that's going to literally bankrupt you. You're going to lose everything. Your mind, subconscious is telling you that, all will be lost because you're being foolish with money. You're wasting money. Now, realistically, if you look at it, and this dish costs $35, and this one costs, $39, or this one costs $42, and this one costs $48, the difference is $6, okay? What difference is that going to make? It's not going to make really any difference. It's just, it's a mindset. And this is something that was put into me as a child. And it was put into me by everybody. It was put into me by my parents, my grandparents, the adults that I went to church with, their children who we would have conversations. This was all applied to me. And the thought was, it comes from a pure place to survive and do well and be frugal and get ahead in life. But all of this stuff gets planted into you, and it certainly was planted into me. And really, it's really irrational when you think about it. Now, a rational decision might be, I'm not going to go to the expensive steakhouse with, 2 or 3 people where maybe I might be in a situation where I need to pick up the tab and, with bottles of wine and everything, I don't feel like paying for, a $600 dinner right now. And so to not go, that could be rational. You could say, well, let's just order a pizza instead, or let's go down to the Subway shop and just get some food and then go on and do whatever we're going to do. That's probably a rational decision. Like, I don't want to spend that much money. But then once you made the decision to go and you're in there and you want to enjoy yourself, you want to get what you want to enjoy the moment, you want to enjoy the time with the people that you invited there or that you got invited to go with. And so it's just at that point, once you sat down, unless you're going to drink water and not order, you already made the decision that you're going to this expensive restaurant. So once you make the decision that you're going to the restaurant, the ordering something that's $6 cheaper or $8 cheaper, in my view, it's really irrational. And I found myself thinking this way, and it never occurred to me that every time I sat down at a nice restaurant, and even not so nice restaurants, what I'm really looking at is the prices. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a little more expensive, so I'll get the lesser thing. And so what am I doing? I'm telling myself that I'm not worth it. That's what I'm telling myself. I'm not really good enough to treat myself that well. And this is a universal thing with people. I think it was Jordan Peterson in his book, I think 12 Rules to Live By. He talks about that people will not do for themselves. People will not take care of themselves. And he talks about somebody, they go to the doctor, they get a prescription, or it could be anything, but just use the prescription. And they don't take the medicine, or they're supposed to do the physical therapy for themselves, and they don't take the time to do it. They sacrifice themselves, and they don't do it for themselves, and people won't do it for themselves. And he says, this one of these 12 rules is, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of. And what he means by that is that the reality of it, and research and stuff, medical research, where they can't understand why people don't get well, and they find out, well, they didn't take the prescribed treatment. Whereas if you have somebody who's a parent, and I'm a parent, and in those situations where you take your child to the doctor and then you bring them home, and the doctor's orders are, do these things and do this, maybe there's some therapeutic part and you have to do it or you're not going to improve. So the parent, probably virtually all parents, certainly good parents, certainly normal parents, are meticulous. And if you think about it growing up, how many times, your mom or dad or somebody walked into the room and said, it's time to take your medicine. So they come in with the medicine and a little cup of juice or water or whatever. You sit up in bed, they hand it to you, they help you take it, and then that happens over and over and over. Because you'll take better care of somebody you're responsible for. It's also true with pets. Somebody who has a pet, say somebody has a dog or a cat or something, and the dog has some, injury or illness or something, and so they take the animal to the vet, they get the treatment, and they're meticulous about taking care of the pet. But for whatever reason, mostly views of like self-worth and this idea of sacrificing yourself, people won't take care of themselves. And I'm guilty of it too. And so what is that? Now, going back to like the price strategy, I was just consumed by this scarcity belief. And I remember when I lived in New York City, when I was young in my 20s, and sometimes we'd have to take a cab. And I'm riding in the cab and I'm looking at the meter and I'm trying to calculate, how high is it going to go? In other words, how bad is this going to get? And sometimes I would tell them, instead of going around the block, just stop here and let me out. Well, there's rational reasons for doing that. Just stop here. There's no reason to go around the block. But I'm looking at the meter, and every time the meter goes up, it's like I'm suffering something. And that's just a mindset. And I remember years ago, I'd always wanted to go to Bermuda. And I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And if you look at a map, if you just stand on the beach in Myrtle Beach and you look straight out, 600 miles, almost just dead east is Bermuda. And I thought, what a, fascinating, romantic kind of idea that I want to go to Bermuda. So I took a cruise. There was a cruise that left out of Charleston, and, it leaves the harbor, it goes straight to Bermuda. So we get to Bermuda, and I was talking to somebody about Bermuda the other day because there's an airline that started flying, I think, directly from Charleston, South Carolina to Bermuda. And Bermuda is a British territory. It's known to be kind of high end and expensive. And so when I went to Bermuda, I remember I went with my then wife and our son, and we went to this little downtown area, which was on the harbor, and they had different restaurants. And we went in and ate a hamburger and just some other stuff. It was nothing fancy. But I had sticker shock with the hamburger because I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe they charge this much for just a hamburger in Bermuda. So that's my scarcity mindset working. That's my I don't deserve it working. That's that I don't have enough money to pay for this. That's like I can't believe I spent that much money. But the worst part of it is that when I got back and people said, how was Bermuda? And I would talk about it, I would literally complain about how much those hamburgers cost. And think about that. Now, that was a long time ago. And after that trip, I had the money, I paid for it. So what difference does it make? Okay. If you're going to eat something, at a show or a theater, or you're in the airport, or all these different places, or a sporting event, the stuff costs a lot. That's just part of it. Okay. And so what am I exhibiting when I'm talking to people? It was nice, but we just got a hamburger and the bill was blah, blah, blah. And I probably told that story 100 times. And so I was thinking about it the other day, and that was just, the people that are successful, and things I've read, people have said that they could sit down and talk to somebody, just talk to a stranger in 5 minutes and know almost exactly where that person is in life just from what they say. And if somebody like that, and I don't know that I talked to anybody like that, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, because I didn't know a lot of people like that then. They would know everything they needed to know about me. That I wasn't that successful, I was overworked, I was underpaid, and I had severe self-worth and scarcity issues. And I was also thinking about it that the person I was for years, the person I was for decades, like right now, I wouldn't want to hang around with my former self. I really wouldn't want to be around that guy, because that's somebody who's really just complaining and really going nowhere. And that's something that, and I would say if you do it, but we all do it because we're all trained to do it, because we were taught to seek safety and security and save your money. And I'm not talking about just going out and spending all your money and going into debt and going bankrupt. I'm just talking about what do you deserve? Do you believe that you can grow? Do you believe that you can make your life better? Or do you think you have no control over it? Because your thoughts really control you. And what you think about, what you believe, is going to direct literally what you do. Now, I've started to say it's going to direct what happens to you. But that's part of the flawed thinking as well, is to think that life happens to you like you're in this washing machine, getting tumbled around. That's really not what's happening. What's happening is things happen. Bad things happen. My dryer just broke. My friend's apartment just got flooded a little bit. Okay. I've got some other personal things that are not going the way they should go that I got to deal with and address. I'm not talking about that. If you view your life a certain way and you visualize where you want to go and you get crystal clear on that, that doesn't mean stuff won't go wrong. But what will change is the way that you address it, the actions you take, and the knowing that you're going to get to a better place. In other words, knowing that, this year is going to be better than last year. And you can think about that too, because when I look at it, 2024 was pretty good, and it was better than 2023. And 2025 is really good, and maybe it's not a lot better than 2024, but I think that it is, because I'm doing the things that I want to do and everything improves. I remember, even like booking airline flights. You go on these sites, and like I go on a site when I'm trying to see what flights go where, and comparing prices and comparing flights. I go on the Kayak app, and I found myself looking at it. And if you look, and Amazon does this too, where they put their products up and they're like $1 cheaper because that's what people are going to buy. That's not really rational to save $1, right? And I was looking at airline tickets, and these tickets may be, $197 on this airline, but on the better airline with a better flight, they may be $200. It may be $3 difference. But I always found myself, I was in that mindset, scrolling for the cheapest, scrolling for the cheapest, scrolling for the cheapest. Do I really want to live like that? Is that really who I want to be? Is that something that is really going to help my life and change it? Do I think that I'm not worthy to get something good? Do I think something bad is always going to happen? Like, rationally, why do we do this? And if you think about it and you're doing it, it's affecting your life, because every time you get the cheaper option, every time you buy the cheapest flight, you're telling yourself a couple of things. You're telling yourself that you're never going to be successful, and you're telling yourself that you don't deserve it. And there's another part of this as well. And I know when we were in a process of expanding my law firm because I wanted to go into another market, and there were some costs associated with that. And my chief operating officer at the time, she had the mentality that, well, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the money to open that office. We don't have the money to do the things we need to do to make that office viable. And so she would retract and go back, retreat and say, here's the budget. It's not in the budget. And so we don't have the money for that. So we have to wait until we have the money for that. And if I waited, I was never going to have the money for that. The whole point was that's an investment where we have to spend some money to get some things going, and then it will grow. We had a cash crunch or something happen. A couple of things went wrong. I can't remember exactly. And I remember meeting with her, and her plan, her answer for that was to close the office. Now, closing the office, we were going to save, I don't know what we were paying. I think we were paying, it was just like an office in a building with other offices where they provided reception and, coffee and conference rooms and that sort of thing. We just had one room in there. So it wasn't that expensive. And so she's looking at that. It's like, well, this costs us $12,000 a year, and it's not bringing in $12,000 a year. It wasn't bringing in hardly anything at the time. And we're also spending some money, to try to rank it and make it viable. And so her answer was, well, we don't have the money for that. We can't expand until we have the money. But that won't work, okay? Because you have to do something to cause a result. Now, we had some problems with that office in terms of Google, so we had to move to another office. So our rent went up, from like $1,000 a month to I think it's $1,750. There were some other costs associated with that. But what happened with that office is that it grew. We were averaging where we were going to make about $40,000 or $50,000. So we're just barely, breaking even or something like that. And then last year, I think that office did just under $200,000. Okay. So our expenses on that office, I don't have them exactly, but, it's probably $25,000 to $50,000, and we made $200,000. So it's $150,000. That's a 3x, right? In 2025, that office is tracking double. Okay. So this is when I'm recording this right now. This is, toward the end of April. So we've had a whole quarter and then a few weeks on top of that, because I get these numbers weekly. I know the weekly running average from the year before and this year. And that office is tracking, I just looked at it, it was tracking about $450,000 for the year. And then it slipped back down. I think it was like down to just under 400. So it's a very profitable office. And it's also an office that's kind of carrying us a little bit, because our main office, for whatever reason I haven't figured it out yet, our revenues are down a little bit. And I don't know if it's the tariffs, I don't know if it's the economy, I don't know if people are pulling back. I don't know the reason, but that office is really helping us. Now, also in terms of running a business and running a law firm, that individual, the non-believer, no longer works for me. Now, I love her. We're still friends. We've been friends a long time, but she never works for me anymore, because it won't work. If I listen to her, that office wouldn't be growing. We're getting ready to expand to another office in that area and probably end up making, well over another $1 million in probably 2 years or 3 years. I don't know how long it'll take, but I know this is going to work, and I believe in that. And that's something that's just a mindset. And if you find yourself buying the cheapest, if you find yourself looking at the right side of the menu for the prices, if you find yourself sitting in line to buy gas at Costco because it's 6 cents a gallon cheaper, and you're spending your time doing that, stop doing it. Get the most expensive gas that's just closest to your house. Stop doing that, and take your most valuable resource, which is you, and start doing the things that'll make your life better, so that your life next year will be better than it is this year, and start doing those things. So, are you pushing money away? If you're doing the things I just talked about, if you always are buying the cheapest, booking the cheapest, if you're sitting in the economy seat on the back of the plane, you're really abusing yourself mentally. You're abusing the belief in yourself. You're abusing the belief that you are a success and that you deserve better. If you don't deserve better, you're going to push it away. If you don't believe your life can be better, and worse, you don't believe it should be better, then you're pushing money away. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.